Hello everyone and welcome to this Tinkershop tutorial. My name is Martin from the Innisfil Idea Lab and Library, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a 3D printable guitar pick. And to do this we're going to be using two programs. So the first one is Inkscape, which is a free graphics editor that you can download at inkscape.org. And the next program we're going to use is Tinkercad, which is another free program that just runs in your web browser, and you can just sign up for a free account at tinkercad.com. So the idea is we'll create the shape of our guitar pick in Inkscape, save it as an SVG file, and then import it into Tinkercad, which will convert it into a 3D object that we can save and then print on our 3D printer. So let's get started in Inkscape. So the first thing we want to do is create the shape of our guitar pick. And so to do that, we're going to use the star and polygon tool that you see on the left-hand side here. And you can see that this tool, when we click on it, it gives us all these options. So right now you can see it's set, you can change it from like a star or a regular polygon. You can tell it how many corners you want. So right now this is like 6 corners. It should make a hexagon when I click and drag it. But that's not what we want. We basically want, if you think of a guitar pick, it's pretty much just a triangle with rounded corners. So make sure you have the polygon selected, not the star. So I have the polygon selected. And so to make a triangle shape, we want to change it from 6 corners down to 3. Okay? And then this will allow us to make a triangle. So if I click on the page and drag my mouse, we get a triangle. So just go ahead and do that, and don't worry about what size it is right now. And then the next thing we do is we want to round these corners out. So you can see beside the corners parameter, there's this rounded parameter, and we can change the value here. So if I click the up arrow here, you can see it starts to round the corners out. I'm just going to keep doing that until we get a shape like this, right? That looks pretty much like a guitar pick. So make sure you have the regular polygon selected, make sure it's set to 3 corners, and round it to about 0.15. You can make it more rounded if you prefer, but I think 0.15 looks pretty good to me. And then I think I'm going to stretch mine out so it's a little bit longer. So I'm going to click on it, click on the selection arrow here, which allows you to move things around and resize them. And I'm just going to drag this so it's a little bit longer. And so you can just play around with these values the way that you want and kind of play around with stretching it a bit till you get a shape that you prefer. So the next thing I'm going to do is size this. So if you have your guitar pick shape selected, you can see at the top here we have a width and a height. Right now it's in millimeters. I'm going to click that and change it to centimeters. So right now you can see the real size of our guitar pick is 19.336 centimeters by about 20 centimeters high. So that's way too big. I don't have a guitar pick on me right now, so I don't know, but I'm going to guess that I want my guitar pick to be about 3 centimeters wide. So I'm going to change this this width value to 3. But before I do that, I'm going to click this lock button. And what that does is it locks the width to the height and vice versa. So if I change my width by, say, 30%, it'll change the height by 30%. So it just locks those values together and scales our image evenly. So I'm gonna click in and highlight the value in the width box, and I'm gonna type 3 on my keyboard and press enter. Great, so it looks really, really small, but you know, this document size is about the size of a sheet of paper. So 3 by about 3, that's probably pretty good. And this is almost ready now to import into Tinkercad. The last thing I want to do though is get rid of all this white space in the document and kind of resize it right to the edges of our image. So I'm going to click on our guitar pick shape and I'm going to click File, Document Properties. And this opens the Document Properties window. And in the middle of this little window, you can see it says Custom Size. I want you to click on this Resize Page to Content, which expands these options here. And you can just click Resize Page to Drawing or Selection. And that'll just resize the document to our shape, as you can see here. So that's good. This is now ready to save as an SVG file, which we can then import into Tinkercad. So to do that, I'm going to click File, Save As. I'm just going to save mine to the desktop. You can save yours wherever. Make sure the type here is set to either Inkscape SVG or plain SVG. And then just name your file, guitar pick, and click save. So great, we have our 2D shape the way that we want it, and it's ready to make it into a 3D thing in Tinkercad. Alright, so I've created a new Tinkercad project. The first thing I'm going to want to do is change the name of our project. Tinkercad will generate these interesting default file names, but they're not very descriptive. So to make this easier to find in the future, I'm just going to click that and give it a proper file name. And then we're going to import our 2D guitar pick file. So on the right hand side, click on import and then choose a file. Select your guitar pick SVG file and click open. Now there's a few options here. You can import it at a reduced or increased scale, but because we already set the dimensions of our guitar pick back in Inkscape, we want to make sure we keep the scale at 100%, which it is set to. So we're going to click import. Great, so you can see it imported the shape and gave it that third dimension to make it a 3D object. It's looking like it's a little bit too thick probably, and that's okay, we can change that. Let's grab a ruler from the right hand side and drag that to the corner of our work plane. Now if I click on the guitar pick, it'll actually show me the dimensions in millimeters. 10 millimeters is probably a little bit too thick. So I'm going to click on that value and change it to maybe 2 millimeters. You can change it to whatever you want. 1 millimeter might be a little hard for the 3D printer to print successfully. 2, 3, maybe 4 is probably best. But you're welcome to experiment with that. So that's great. You'll notice that it changes the color. The color doesn't really matter. I can change the color back to green if I want. But ultimately, the color of plastic you put into the 3D printer is what is going to come out. So don't worry about that. So that's great. Our 3D shape is done and it's ready to export for 3D printing. So I'm going to click on export on the right hand side here. And you can export it as different file types, but usually we like STLs, so I'm going to click STL. And great, it downloads that file and that is ready to be 3D printed. Great, so I hope you enjoyed watching this video and you learned something, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.